Welcome to this audiobook episode brought to you by Book Summary Lessons. Have you ever wished you could take one look at someone and instantly know what they're thinking, what they want, and who they really are? Well, while true mind reading might still be beyond our reach, there's a way to get pretty close. In his book, Read People Like a Book, social interaction expert Patrick King shows us that by learning to interpret speech, behavior, and body language, we can read people far more accurately. In this episode, we're going to dive into the lessons from Patrick King's book, where you'll learn the essential skills of reading and understanding people. First, we'll discuss the obstacles we face when trying to read others effectively. Then, we'll uncover the driving forces behind human behavior. Following that, we'll learn how to decode nonverbal cues, the silent signals people send through body language. And finally, we'll explore strategies for detecting lies. So sit back, relax, and let's begin this insightful journey of human understanding. Part 1. The obstacles we face when reading people. We all like to believe that we're great judges of character. You meet someone, exchange a few words, and feel confident that you know exactly who they are. But the truth is, judging others is far more difficult than it seems. People often misinterpret signs and jump to misguided conclusions about what another person feels or thinks. Patrick King warns us against this, advising that we should consider several factors that could skew our interpretation of someone's behavior. So how can we improve our ability to judge character more accurately? King suggests 4 key prerequisites. Know their baseline behavior. Understand how they typically behave. Look for patterns. Don't rely on just one moment or gesture. Consider the context. Take into account what's happening around them. Question your own biases. Are you projecting your own feelings onto them? Let's break down each of these obstacles in detail. The first trap we fall into is not taking the time to understand how someone usually behaves. To accurately read someone, you must first know their baseline behavior, how they act in their normal state. Just like detectives in crime shows who observe their suspects carefully before jumping to conclusions, you should pay attention to how people behave day to day. Only then can you spot any changes or anomalies. For example, let's say your friend has a generally low-energy demeanor. If they don't seem excited about an event, you might be tempted to think they're indifferent, but in reality, it could simply be their usual calm nature. Don't misinterpret a person's behavior without considering what's normal for them. The second trap is relying on a single moment to form conclusions. It's tempting to judge someone based on just one action or gesture. For example, imagine you're giving a presentation at work and you notice your coworker, Dave, frowning. Your immediate thought might be, "He hates my idea." But was that frown truly a sign of disapproval? Or was Dave having a bad day or dealing with a headache? That one moment isn't enough to understand the whole picture. You need to gather multiple data points before forming conclusions. The third trap is ignoring the context in which a behavior occurs. Context is key. If someone is speaking loudly in a crowded room, you might assume they're angry, but they might just be trying to make themselves heard over the noise. Similarly, if you're interviewing someone for a job, your authoritative role might make the person nervous, causing them to act more reserved than they usually would. This could alter how you perceive their confidence. The final obstacle is our own biases. Everyone has them, whether they admit it or not. For instance, if you're naturally skeptical, you might interpret someone's avoidance of eye contact as a sign of dishonesty, when in reality, they could just be shy or introverted. Our biases can cloud our judgment. Often, what we think we see in others says more about our own fears or insecurities than it does about the person we're observing. To become better at reading people, you must separate your emotions from the situation, allowing you to see their behavior more clearly. Part 2. Understanding the driving forces behind human behavior. Why do people behave the way they do? This is a question that has long fascinated psychologists, philosophers, and anyone who's wondered about human nature. Patrick King asserts that there is always a reason behind every action, and by understanding what motivates people, we can better grasp the why behind their behavior. There are 2 main components of our psyche that shape our behavior: motivations and personality. Motivations. Our motivations are influenced by several key factors. Subconscious urges. These are hidden desires and feelings that influence us more than we realize. For example, someone might act resentful of a friend's success, not because they dislike them, but because their own unfulfilled ambitions are triggered. The pleasure principle. This is the basic human drive to seek pleasure and avoid pain. King explains that avoiding pain is often a more powerful motivator than seeking pleasure. For example, someone might stay in a job they dislike because the fear of financial instability outweighs the discomfort of their current situation. Additionally, emotions often override logic, pushing us to make decisions based on feelings rather than rational thinking. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This theory suggests that human beings are driven by a series of needs. At the bottom are basic survival needs: food, water, shelter. Once those are met, we seek safety, stability, and relationships. At the higher levels, people seek self-esteem and self-actualization, which is the pursuit of creativity, purpose, and contribution. Understanding where someone falls on this hierarchy can give you insight into what motivates their behavior. The desire to defend the ego. At its core, the ego is our sense of self, how we see ourselves, and how we want others to see us. When our ego is threatened, our behavior can change dramatically. For example, someone who prides themselves on their intelligence may try to cover up a mistake to protect their self-image. Personality. The second driving force behind behavior is personality. Our personality shapes how we consistently react to the world. If you understand someone's personality, you can usually predict their behavior. For example, if a friend always stays calm under pressure, you know that they are likely to handle stress with composure. Similarly, a coworker who tends to procrastinate but delivers great work under pressure has a personality that thrives in high-stress situations. Part 3. How to read nonverbal cues. People are constantly revealing themselves, even when they don't realize it. Their body language, facial expressions, tone of voice, and even the way they dress all tell a story. It's your job to observe these silent signals and piece together the clues. Patrick King explains that nonverbal communication is rooted in the instinctive part of our brain, the one that can't lie. Our words might be carefully chosen, but our body language and facial expressions often betray our true feelings. Let's start with stress. Stress is one of the easiest emotions to detect. People often engage in self-soothing behaviors when they feel nervous, such as rubbing their hands or fidgeting with their clothes. If someone is adjusting their collar or touching their neck during a tense conversation, it's their body trying to calm itself down. Additionally, pay attention to the classic fight-or-flight responses. When faced with a perceived threat, people either try to escape, flight, become aggressive, fight, or freeze in place. These responses can show up in everyday situations, like when someone leans away from you, flight, or clenches their fists, fight. Next, let's focus on the face. Microexpressions are tiny, involuntary movements that can reveal a person's true emotions. These expressions happen so quickly that most people miss them, but with practice, you can learn to spot them. One more thing to watch for is mirroring. When someone copies your posture or gestures, this is a sign that they feel comfortable and connected to you. On the other hand, if they're not mirroring you, they might feel distant or uncomfortable. Part 4. How to detect lies. One of the most powerful uses of reading people is detecting when someone is lying. Patrick King points out that detecting lies isn't easy. Liars can be nervous or composed, and sometimes the best liars know exactly how to hide their tells. So how can you catch them in the act? Start by asking open-ended questions. Lying takes a lot of mental energy, so the more someone talks, the more likely they are to make a mistake. Begin by asking them to elaborate on their story. If they claim they were at a cafe, ask, "What did you order?" or "How was the atmosphere?" These questions encourage them to reveal more details, which increases the chances of inconsistencies. Next, shift to specific questions. Ask about details they might not have rehearsed. What song was playing, where they sat, or what the weather was like. Truthful people tend to remember these little details, while liars struggle. A clever trick is to subtly misquote them. If they said they arrived at 3, mention that they arrived at 2:30 and see if they correct you. Small discrepancies can reveal the truth. Finally, Observe their overall behavior. Do they suddenly become tense when the topic shifts? Do they avoid certain questions or over-explain their story? Liars often feel the need to explain away every detail, while truthful people can leave gaps and still be comfortable. So, next time you're trying to read someone, remember, pay attention to patterns, stay curious, and most importantly, stay observant. With these skills, you'll be better equipped to understand what others are really thinking and feeling. Thanks for joining Book Summary Lessons for this deep dive into reading people.